Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 24th of March. It's 8 p.m. or it's a little bit before, but 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. If you've got this any other time than that, you've caught the recorded version. It's okay. Hang tight. We'll get started here in a few minutes. We're going to goof around and a little bit of pre-show. So if you're watching this on YouTube and it's not that time, we'll start in a minute or two. Shout out to some folks I already see in the chat room. Joe and Brian are out there. If you want to join us in the chat room, that'd be great. Take a few minutes, kind of let everybody get started and get in. I did a beer pour. I cheated. I did it before we got here, and I poured some Blue Moon. Gavin, you do the
Soda Stream.
Soda Stream. What do you got? What do you got?
Oh, I'm still on the Pepsi kick right now. Like it's kind of funny because I'll go through flavors, right? Like sometimes I'll drink like a one flavor and I'll be hard on it for a week and then I get sick of it and then I buy another one. But this Pepsi one I've actually been doing for a while now. So I don't know. I gotta find another flavor soon.
Oh, you don't have to. What's the size? What's the liter? How big is that? Is that a liter?
Is it a liter? Something like that.
And then what do you think it costs you to do your own soda?
It's definitely money saving. But you have to buy the air cartridges, then you have to buy the flavor, right? But in the end, it does work out to saving. But you know what? You also spend a lot of money in those air cartridges. But there's ways of saving money with that because it's just CO2. So some people buy an adapter and they'll buy a large CO2 tank and get that filled, and then they can just and then it costs pennies to fill it. You know, I'm just too lazy to do that.
Yeah, I get you. I bought one of those Big Buddy heaters for my shed, so that we've turned into the smoke shack, and you can get the propane, the 1 gallon. That's not what they call them.
Yeah,
the small propane tanks, 1 pound. I think they're a pound. No, maybe I don't know. Doesn't matter. And then, but it's way more economical to hook that thing up to a 20 pound, regular propane tank. So you got to buy the adapters and all that other stuff. And I just recently put a hole in the shed so I could run the propane to the outside of the shed instead of keeping it next to flame that was going on. It's like, I should probably separate these two. So put a 4-inch hole, a PVC pipe, put the pipe through it, and then stuffed plastic bags in there just to kind of keep the varmints out.
I have a garage heater sitting in the garage right now that I gotta get installed, and it's been sitting there for a year. My neighbor keeps bugging me to put it in, but I'll put it in when it warms up a bit.
For next winter.
I don't need it now. For next winter, because we gotta run another line, etc.
Yeah, I need to put a heater in my garage. That's what I need to do. It's a small garage. It wouldn't take much, but it'd sure be nice to have that thing on home automation where, in the winter, if the temperature is below said degrees, it comes on at like 7:30 so that when Sarah comes out, it's nice. It's nice in the garage. That'd be nice.
That's a good idea. I mean,
do
that.
I'd be a good husband. I should be a good husband. Dude, I might score some points, although I think it's too late.
Next year.
No, I mean in my marriage. I think it's too late to score points. I don't think it matters anymore. I think after 30 years of being married, I think that doesn't matter anymore. You're just kind of like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. Okay, have a good time. We'll see you when you get back.
Yeah, you got past the return period. Not even Costco would take you back at this point.
No. There's no used car dealer buying my stuff. No, it's way too old. Although I did get I got a letter from one of our dealerships today that said, "Hey, we want your 05 Pacifica."
05?
05. Yeah, they're like, your 05 Pacifica might have some value. And I'm like, well, we sold it 6 years ago and it was a POS then.
Yeah.
So I don't think you want my Pacifica, but it was just kind of weird.
Nuts. Yeah.
I know.
Weird.
They're trying to find used cars everywhere right now.
We bought a 2017 Acura RDX a couple years ago, but a year after we bought it, they were already contacting us to try and buy it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
but we would have to buy another car for more
Right.
money, so it
Right.
doesn't make
Yeah, you're
sense.
like, "Have you done the financial thing on this?" Like,
I just don't get it.
I don't think that works. So, Alex, thanks for checking in. Appreciate you guys coming out. We'll get started here in just a second. Good to see you guys. I did. I went out and bought. I always keep some Blue Moon on tap here. It's- this is one beer I should probably make a kegerator here for the house that I've just got a keg that because we drink so much of it that it'd probably be more economical just to have it, and it'd be nice to have it on tap.
True.
But I kind of went plain tonight. So all right, Gavin, let's give this thing. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Everybody, Mike is out until the 4th, I think.
Oh, he's really
So
busy.
well, no, I guess is the 4th next week. What do calendars look like? No, 31st is next week. Yeah, he's got some major conflicts going on right now. So it's his schedule. I told him once he started having kids, it'd be pretty rough. So Cody's next week. Yeah, he's out the next 2 weeks. So okay, let's check this. Those look good. As soon as it never fails. As soon as I start, or I'm getting ready to start, my family starts chiming in on Facebook Messenger. So all I get is these cha-ching, cha-ching. I'm gonna mute them for the next 8 hours.
I wish you could do that in real life sometimes. Like, I can't hear what you say. We got 4 hours still. That would be good.
I'm gonna leave now. That would be awesome. Just mute. Like, yeah, even if I wanted to, Joe does have a point that Michael will have changed his whole network by the time he gets back, which is
twice.
Which is you'll have bought it and sold it for more.
Yes.
Twice.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at that. Okay, let me kick this thing off. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 528, recorded on March 24th, 2022. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here, and spring is on its way. Gavin, remind me again, where are you located? What part of the world do you live in?
Toronto. I'm just on the outskirts of Toronto.
Okay, so basically East Coast, right? Right, as Toronto sits over the East Coast of the U.S., is that right?
No, well, it's like above
Closer to the
Buffalo,
north?
kind of like around there. Like
In Omaha, that's all east, so we consider that the East Coast.
I figured that anything you were just like, over on that side.
Yeah,
we're Eastern Standard Time.
Anything on that side of the Mississippi is East Coast.
Okay,
like, those East Coasters. Are you guys getting any spring weather? Are you excited about it coming?
It's really weird. Like the weather is going up. It's been up like 10, 15. We hit 18 degrees Celsius at one point. Right. All the snow is melted at this point. We had crazy windstorms last night. And lots of rain falling. And then, with all that going on, next week they say we might get a little more snow coming in again. They're watching out for that.
Yeah, don't get suckered into that whole second spring thing.
Yes,
it's not real.
Yeah. One of the golf courses actually opened up down the road. So some people are getting out already to golf.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, global warming is helping with that because we get the warmer days are just a little bit warmer, which is kind of nice. I mean, it's in the 70s here. So, well, hopefully if you're listening to this now, you're in some great weather. And certainly for our friends down in Texas, they just got slammed the last couple nights. And hopefully everyone is safe, but it is that time of the year. Spring here, at least in the Midwest, is pretty crazy. But of course, we'll post a show with some world-class show notes, and I'll have a few from tonight out at the AverageGuy.tv. Don't forget you can watch us again, sort of live, the YouTube premiere every Saturday noon Central, and you can jump in and just watch it again. a bunch of us kind of show up, and you can jump in the chat room, and it's a good way to chat. And you don't even have to listen, and you can, or maybe you got distracted the first time you listened to it, or you could just come out and join us. Noon Central, theaverageguy.tv/YouTube. You've heard him already, but Gavin Campbell is with us tonight of HomeTech.fm fame. And Gavin, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Great to be back. You know, like we always seem to have a big topic every time I come back. So I'm looking forward to getting into what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Some home networking
Yep.
is on tap. Let's figure out what's going on at HomeTech.fm, though. What kind of things? How's that going? And what have you guys been covering over there?
Oh, it's been great. Home Tech FM, for those not familiar, we cover a lot of home automation stuff. So anything to deal with, and we cover various spaces. So we're covering the DIY space. That's where I come in. We cover the pro space. You know, TJ and Seth help with that. We cover news. We have some home projects we feature. We're even talking about projects that we're working on. Like right now, TJ's working on a new van he got. You know, Seth's trying to get brave enough to automate his kitchen range. Right, like we're trying to wait for a time when the wife's not home so he can pull it apart. Right.
He's gonna hold on. He's gonna DIY. I mean, he's gonna turn the range into a smart range, or what's he? Because this sounds kind of interesting. Like, what's he doing?
So this is what we're talking about. I actually bought a Fibaro sensor. I had it somewhere around here, but I bought a Fibaro sensor that I was going to try and do the same thing with my range, but we wanted to automate it and turn the range into like a Z-Wave control. So automate the lights so we can control the lights on it and you can control the fan on it, right? And so it's a little bit more complicated because of how the buttons work on it and stuff like that. So we've been kind of talking about it. It's a brave project. So we're taking our time with this one, but little things like that we cover on the show. You know, I talked about one of my projects. I added some smarts to my dryer. So I can get notifications when it's, you know, on and off.
Nice.
And how I did it was a little bit like an aha moment. I'll let the listeners go to listen to the show because it's a little different there, right?
Yeah.
And then something coming up, what we've been working on. I don't know if Seth will like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But we've been trying to line up some interviews or some interesting people that we want to talk to that we're going to try and get on the show. And, you know, I'm not going to mention any names yet, but, you know, that should be coming up in the future.
Cool. Speaking of that, next week here on Home Gadget Geeks, Cody Sodine is joining us. He's the inventor and creator of this. It pulls moisture out of the air and creates 10 liters a day of drinking water, clean drinking water. And so they're on a Kickstarter program, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, can we come talk about it?" And sure. So if you want to join us live next week, Cody will be with us as well. Well, Gavin, that sounds really cool. Like that would be it. Listen, if you're new to Home Gadget Geeks, or even if you're not, and you haven't been or subscribed to HomeTech.fm, you should, because it's very similar. I think you guys are a little more technical. You get a little more into the weeds, I think, if I remember.
And we focus a little more on automation stuff. Right.
Yeah. So if you haven't subscribed to that, you should head out to HomeTech.fm and get it subscribed. Listen to it, add it to it. I know all of our, well, for some of us, all of our repetition, you know, the things we do on a regular basis have changed, you know, in the last couple of years. I am desperately trying to get my podcast listening back. It's just not, you know, 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm going into the office 3 days a week, and then gas prices went up, and I was like, maybe 2 days. And then this week I was like, maybe I'll just stay home. So, you know, I've been actually taking trips during the day. Like, I think I need to go to the grocery store just to get out of the house, you know, kind of deal. We've got one just down the road. So I pop in the podcast then, but HomeTech.fm. Gavin, we had you on the last time. We talked a lot about Unraid, and I think you guys talk about Unraid as well on HomeTech.fm. So if you like that topic, you might want to head over and listen to that. After the show, you're like, you know, I could talk some more about some things. And so I pinged you, and you've recently kind of redone your whole internal home networking, right? What causes someone to just go, the old stuff is out, I'm bringing something new in?
In my case, it was just, I had an issue with the old stuff. And I spent a lot of time trying to solve it, working with support and working with people. And I just could not figure it out. And I just got fed up and I said, you know what? I'm done. I told support, I said, thank you very much for the help. It's nothing on you
Mhm,
guys. We just
mhm.
can't figure this out. I'm done, and I'm out.
What'd you have? What'd you pull out?
I had a Euro setup,
Mm,
right? And I had that Euro setup for many years and it worked great, right? It's just I ran into a situation. They released an update in August of last year, and all of a sudden my devices started dropping off the network. So mainly my
mm,
Habitat, not my Habitat, my Harmony hubs were dropping off the network, and that was frustrating because you could be watching TV and you go adjust the volume and it just stops working.
mhm, mhm.
And then like cell phones and wireless devices. So that's where it started.
So solidly caused by the update, right? I mean, did they admit to that, or did in the end
That's
of the yeah.
That's the only thing I could tie it to because it was working beautifully, and then they released this big update with some new features on how the network mesh and how it decides what bands it uses and stuff like that. And that is what I tied it to at that time. I asked them to roll it back, even just to troubleshoot it. I said, listen, let's
Mhm,
troubleshoot. Let's just
mhm.
roll it back to troubleshoot it. And they refused to do that. So I could never really justify that. So we went through everything to try and solve this.
Mm. Yeah. Well, you gave it a try. I mean, that's good on you for at least working through it with them. Give us a little kind of rundown from a equipment standpoint. What else do you have on your network? We know you have an Unraid box, but what other kinds of things are you using on your network?
My network, I have a lot of devices. Other than the usual cell phones, laptops, I'll have computers. I have all my TVs. I have a little PC on them, a micro PC. So those are all hardwired in. I have video cameras, all my video cameras. Some are hardwired, some are not. Those are on it. And then just the usual IoT devices. So you'd have like your Echo B on there, or your Amazon devices are all on there, right? Those are just, it adds up. When you look at your DHCP reservations, it just adds up. Next thing you know, you have 150 devices. You're like, where did these all come from?
Mhm. I imagine you're still running a switch of some kind though too, right? We've all got, because we all have a bunch of hardwired stuff too. And not everything's wireless. So what are you running for a switch?
Now I have a Unify switch
Okay.
down there. I got a 24 port. When we moved into this house, one of the first things I did was have a guy come in and run wire as much to every room. I ran Cat 6. Luckily, I had a stack in the middle of my house, and they just ran it right up to the attic and down into every room. It made the
Mm.
job easy. So I lucked out there.
I've heard some guys say they run conduit, like PVC, plastic PVC to the various places. So to kind of future proof the wiring process, because
Yeah.
at some point, I mean, we were running Cat 5. It wasn't that long ago. We were wiring things with Cat 5. And then, of course, if you had to pull, if you wanted to put in a Cat 6 or Cat 7 at this point, you'd have to pull all that. And so have you in your setup, if you had to rewire, would that be an ordeal?
Not really. It's not really difficult for me because in the middle of my house, I have my water heater, and
Mm,
from it's a gas, so there's a vent that goes straight up
okay.
through the house. So they just use that. I'm gonna be replacing it, but I'll still have that. So if I had to rerun everything, I would just go through the same spot and it made things easy. If someone else was doing it, running PVC from your basement to your attic would make life easier because once you're in the attic, then you could drop down in all the rooms up there. And if your
Yeah.
basement's unfinished, then you can go up through the basement if
Right.
you had a basement, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it always gets me thinking. And I just have two levels: basement, first floor. We don't have a second floor.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy for me. And I've run cable up to the attic for I put antennas in the attic. I'm that guy. So I didn't want them on the outside. In Nebraska, you don't want anything on the outside of your house because it's gonna get blown away at some point. You just know, right?
Yeah.
So we put antennas, I put them up in the attic. So I've run cable up there. I don't have any power up there. Maybe Wieger has pushed all his cameras PoE. So and then I'm sure you have as well, right? All your cameras are PoE.
No,
or
I haven't gone PoE
okay.
yet. My cameras are all. I have power at the location where everything is, so I didn't
Mm,
see a need for PoE really.
sure, sure. Well, it's a consideration. Now, when your router started to fail, was your hardwired stuff okay? I mean, did that work? Was it just the Wi-Fi stuff that was the problem?
Yeah, it was just the Wi-Fi, and mainly like we noticed it like with the Harmony hubs. We noticed it with our cell phones. We would notice it. Things would just drop off and on randomly. I spent about 4 months, I think, working on this with support. Going through
Wow.
so many things, and I replaced almost every piece of equipment in my setup. And all they kept blaming was my ISP. They said interference. They went through so many things and we never figured it out.
Yeah, that's always working with your ISP is a dream, you know?
Oh, my ISP was great. They came
Were
out,
they?
they
Okay.
tested the line, they did everything. I even upgraded my service for the same amount of money, right? And I was happy, and they said, "Yeah, I'm getting great speeds." So it can't be anything
Yeah.
wrong there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Bob says, sounds like it could have been a DHCP failure when things, start dropping off one thing at a time. Other than that, then all going poof at once. I was thinking it was maybe a Wi-Fi chip in the actual, like, so sometimes, they don't use the best gear. Did they replace the gear for you at any point in time or no?
So they offered, but I actually told them there's no point at that. Like I documented this in a Reddit thread, and one of the things I did was I had 5 euros, right? So I even got to the point where I had one online. I was running off just one. And then even that one, I swapped it out with one of the other ones. So I
Okay.
said, I tried to eliminate that. I said, chances of one failing, okay, great. Chances of two or three all failed, unless I got
Yeah.
struck by lightning or something like
Yeah.
that, like so I replaced that and with no luck at all.
Boy, that does sound like software. Right? I mean, you did your due diligence, you worked
Yeah.
through all the troubleshooting. We find, I have found in the consumer work that I've done, people buy these cheap single Wi-Fi routers, right? So they're 69 or $79. They put a whole bunch of things on them. And you do have to realize those chips on there are not very good. I mean, you're not getting a very good router for 69 bucks, right? It's
No.
just not. And so, of course, the more devices you add to them, the hotter they get, and none of them are designed for heat at all. They just basically, someone licks those chips and sticks them on the board, right? Good to go.
Yeah.
So, those things burn out. I mean, the cheap ones. Now, I think most who listen to this show have probably upgraded to some serious equipment by now. We've all done that. We've all gone through that. But I see that in the space, and I don't see it as much as I used to, but I used to see it a lot. People contact me like, yeah, my Wi-Fi is not working. I just bought a router like 9 months ago. And, you say, well, how many devices you have on it? And like, well, unlike you, they always say, "Oh, just a few." And then when you start asking them, "Well, are your TVs?" "Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah." "Do your phones?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're connected." "What about you have any kind of camp?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. My ring does go through that." Right. Pretty soon you add it up, and there's like 35 devices running full time on that thing, and it just burns the chips out. The chips
Yeah.
just, you know.
I'm a little excessive, but I add a reservation for every device. I know every device
Oh
on
yeah,
my network,
yeah,
right? So I know exactly what's there, where it is, so that's one of the things I keep real locked down on.
yeah. Yeah, Bob says, 3 cheap things in one box. What could go wrong? Switch, router, and Wi-Fi. And it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, they were just budget gear in there, and it does. This is one of those areas I cheaped out on them for a while. And in the pre-show, you and I were talking. You were saying, one of the things you're trying to do is when you buy equipment, just buy a step up or a step or two up, just so it'll last a little bit longer. And I think sometimes we get pulled into that budget frenzy, like, oh, it's on sale. And they're like, there's a reason, you know, it's on sale. So I think that's probably not a good, I mean, I think that's probably a pretty good mantra to take. It's a little challenging right now because there's a few things that are a little more expensive than others, but there are things that aren't ridiculously expensive. You and I were talking about, you got a big Unraid box. Hard drives right now are actually pretty reasonable for whatever reason. I mean, you can find some good deals on those. You found some pretty good deals recently as well, right?
Yeah, so I've decided to in my Unraid box, everything's the Western Digital Red, right? And I remember on the last show we were talking about our oldest drives, and I think mine are still my oldest drives are still running are about 7 or 8 years old, right? But I had a Western Digital that was just over a year old fail on me this week. And last week Sunday or on Sunday I shipped it out to Western Digital for an RMA. They got it Monday, they shipped it out Tuesday. I got the replacement on Wednesday.
Nice.
So it was a really good process with them. So I'm going to stick with Western Digital.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good call. I think if you were upgrading anything at the moment, hard drives are a good place to be. They've stabilized, prices stabilized out. They really haven't seen an increase through this inflationary period that we've been in. You can still get some good deals. The new 16 terabyte drives are kind of getting in that sweet spot. And so I think it's a good place to be. Okay. So I'm dying to hear you like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to do something different. What do you start as you're thinking about a new setup? Walk me through your thought process a little bit. What were you thinking about?
At this point, I was thinking of doing a couple of things. I wanted to simplify my setup. So, like if I'm going to rip it all out and replace it all, let's just simplify it. I was running a PF Sense box in there, and at the time I was doing more advanced stuff with PF Sense at that time, but I decided, I don't really need this. Right, it's overkill.
And you're stabbing people in the heart right now, Gavin.
I'm sorry, no, it's a very powerful box, but I didn't need what it offered, and I figured if I'm going to put in a new system, let me look for a system that lets me do some of the stuff that PF Sense box does as well.
Yeah, so some smart. I mean, were you looking for kind of smart routing? Were you looking for some IP address blocking? What were you looking? What were you replacing in that PF Sense box that you used the most?
Well, the PF Sense box, what I was doing was I was doing some smart routing out, and doing some, forwarding things through specific VPN tunnels and stuff like that. And you know what I said, it's just too complicated. I don't have to do this stuff, so, and one of the troubleshooting steps through this whole process, I actually pulled out the PF Sense box to eliminate it from the whole mix. Right. And then I switched over to having the Eero as my whole gateway router, everything. Right. And just to eliminate that. And once I got rid of the PF Sense box at that point, I said, I don't really need to add it back. Right. So, I know the PF Sense hardcores they're upset with me. I'm sorry. I love PF Sense still, but I just didn't need it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail. Well, it's been Gavin. It's been nice having you on. Thanks for coming out tonight. It's always good. No, it's great. Listen, Wieger goes back and forth. He goes back and forth on it, and I do too. Although I haven't recently. I started setting up a PF Sense box. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and I got it to the point where I booted it up and I got the network cards. And then I was like, do I really? Because it's super easy to set up. Like that part is easy. And then I was starting to think through all the stuff I needed to set up on the network. And I was like, I don't know. I just tore it apart. I was like, I don't know. I don't need more complicated things in my life.
That's the key.
Right. I need them to be less complicated. Did it give you a chance to kind of think? So if you're going to pull the PF Sense box and you're going to have to reconfigure a router coming in, did that give you a chance to rethink your network design at all? Were there things that were there other things you could make more efficient or do differently? Any thoughts on that?
I did try and think. I ran some more cables, to hardwire some more stuff. But the setup I kind of had already, I was kind of happy with. So I centralized everything in the basement, where my service comes in. From there, from the basement, I have a switch, and that switch feeds the rest of the house. And then as I have a line going to like my office, I have multiple devices in my office. I would have another mini switch here that I would, offload other things off the Wi-Fi as well through that. So I pretty much liked what I already had. I just ran a few more extra things in the setup.
Do you have a bunch of different named 4-port switches all around the house? Like I do, like different brands. Some of them are like 10 years old, and they're hidden inside a cabinet somewhere or whatever. Do you do that too?
Yeah, but before I got rid of them all though. I
Oh,
went with the new with the new solution. I said, you know what,
yeah.
I'm going one brand. I want it to do
Okay.
everything,
Okay.
right? So I don't want to mix match different brands. I wanted one brand covers everything.
Did 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 you also kind of think through like, okay, what does my Wi-Fi coverage actually need to be? Did you do any testing inside or outside at all to determine that? And what'd you
Yeah,
use?
yeah. So in terms of coverage, some of the things we want coverage is in the backyard. We want around the pool. We want coverage out there. I want coverage in the front yard, in the garage area and stuff. I wanted to have good coverage there. And that coverage I wanted to extend into. Sounds funny, but we hang out in my neighbor's garage a lot, so I kind of wanted to extend into his garage too,
Yeah.
so I could get
Yeah.
my signal from there. Like he doesn't get his signal in his garage too well, but I can get mine in his
Nice.
garage. It's a weird thing, right?
No,
Um,
it works.
so we planned that all out, and there was actually a tool that I used that could you can tell it what devices you were putting where you were putting on your floor plan, and it showed you the coverage,
Hmm.
right? And I used that to plan out what devices I needed and where to put them and how much coverage they would have. And it showed you based on the walls too, how weak or strong outside the walls it was.
What was
So
this
it was
tool that you were using?
it's part of the Unify tool set.
Okay.
I would have to look it up, but they have their own tool, a designer tool, and you can put your own floor plan in it, and then you just take the devices that you bought with them and you put it in the locations, and it shows you the strength and the coverage and takes into account walls and stuff.
And we didn't explicitly say this, but you ended up going with a Unify system. You kind of
Yes.
mentioned it, but you ended up going Unify. What was that like? What's it going to run me to jump into a solution
Mm.
like that if I was going to go that route?
A lot. I know. You know what? Yeah, I reached the point where I'm like, you know what? I want to solve this problem, not think about
Yeah,
it again, right?
yeah,
So I'm going to
right.
throw some money on it. I pieced together the system by looking online, marketplace. Are people off? There's a lot of people offloading, older equipment. I got a great deal on a Dream Machine,
Mm.
the Unified Dream Machine, and a guy had like 10 of them, and he was giving them away for like next to nothing, and I jumped at it and I lucked out on that. I saw a few other deals, grabbed those things, and I ended up just piecing the whole system together with everything I wanted, but it did cost me a little bit of money still.
A little chunk of change to do that.
Yeah,
Well, you're in Canada too, so it's always a little more expensive, right?
yeah,
Isn't it?
yeah.
Aaron's always saying it's like 20% more, something like that in Canada.
Yeah, we always have we gotta pay for the ship from the States and stuff like that
Oh, I
too,
thought
and
it was
all that
paying for
stuff.
healthcare. I thought that's what it was
And
saying.
that too, yeah, yeah.
I mean, they don't make 20, they don't actually, have $500 hammers, right? I mean, something needs to pay for healthcare up
Exactly.
there, right? So I'll run through. So what did you end up with? What's the kind of punch list of equipment it took to replace all that?
So I got the Unified Dream Machine. That's the
Okay.
main router and everything like that. And then that goes into a switch, a 24 port switch. It's not a PoE switch. It's just um, their current. I don't know the exact model numbers off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but
no worries.
you'll see it on their website.
Yeah.
From the switch, I have two Flex HDs. One's in my family room, one's in my master bedroom, and then I have a Nano that's like at the front of the garage, and those are my access points, right?
Mhm.
So I have those access points throughout the house. They're all on different corners of the house, so they cover the edges. And then in the various rooms, I also have little like 4-port switches in each one that and it's funny because you see all this stuff in their app, like they all report to each other. You can manage them, you see what's connected to them. Like
Nice.
it's amazing the information you get from them.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, and I haven't run a Unify system, but it does sound like you get a lot of clarity out of it as far as what things are doing. That was always with PF Sense. I always felt like I had to get a PhD to figure out some of the like, oh, I got to write some code to do this. Now, you write code, so that would be pretty easy for you. But I always struggled with that. Is your garage the one that gets to your neighbor's garage? Is
Yes.
that you guys? So the garages are pretty close.
Yeah, they're like right next to each other. So, I get my signal over there, which is, great because sometimes I'll go over there and be working on something and I need to have access to my
Yeah,
network from there.
yeah. How long do you think you were taking down the home Wi-Fi, right? I mean, that's not always you're not always the most popular person in the house when those kinds of things happen. I mean, I always have to plan if I'm going to do any major upgrades or anything. I kind of have to do them late at night or wake up early on a Sunday morning. That's a good time to do it. Do you have any problems putting this in? How long did it take you? Talk a little bit about that.
When you plan something like this, I know you have to go through change management and get approvals, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole process to it, So when I planned it, luckily it's just me and the wife, so I don't have to deal with kids, complaining that the Wi-Fi is down or anything.
I
But
know.
the wife, the TV is all dependent on it and everything like
Yeah.
that too, right? So what I did is I planned it so the first thing I had to get back up and running was the Unraid box and the TV. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know once I get the switch in and I got this in, all that stuff's kicked back in and the main TV's working and she's happy. And now I can work on the rest of it. And that only took me a little bit of time.
Did you have to change SSIDs? Did you have to go to each of the devices, or were you able to put in the same info and password and have it work?
Yeah, I kept all the SSIDs the same and the same password. So when I configured the Unified Dream Machine actually offline first, so that all I had to do was just swap it in for the Eero at that point, right? And the SSIDs were all the same and everything, and the devices just all switched right over.
Bob says, I always plan my network maintenance around, honey, did you see that there's a shoe sale at your favorite place on Saturday? It's a great way to say, hey, here's $100. Go get some lunch somewhere and take your time. Right.
Yeah.
As a way to do it. Have you had it? When did you put it in, Gavin? How long
I
have
think
you
it
had
was
it?
about December or November or December I put it in.
And have you had any Dream Machine problems? There's a couple reports in the chat room of some folks that the unified disappointment machine, as called by some out there. Have you had any issues, or did you know? God, listen, every piece of equipment has
Yeah.
issues, right? But yeah,
Every piece of equipment has issues. I'm one of the lucky ones. The only issue I had with my whole setup since I put it in was with my printer. My air printer was dropping off. You'd boot it up, you would see it, you could print fine, and then like an hour later, it's gone, right? And it wouldn't discover. And I don't know what it was, but I went through extensive disable this feature. Let's see what happens. Disable this feature. I documented everything so I can try and figure out what exact feature it was. And then one day it all started working. I don't know if I got an update and there was a reboot and it all started working. I don't know what it was. I can't figure out what it was. I went through and started undoing all the things I did and I can't break it now. So I'm at the point where it's like, you know what? It works. Oh, wow. I don't know how it fixed it.
just one day you went down there and it was fine.
Yeah, one day I went to print something and it's like, oh, it showed up, right? And the wife, she prints a lot, so she's the first to let me know. So she's my perfect test for that.
Yeah. Don't you hate that? Like, you're working and troubleshooting and you reset it and you do it again and set it back up and you give up and you try again a week later and it doesn't work. And then one day, poof, just works.
I think it may have been an update they released or something, because there's updates going out like all the time to these things.
Yeah. An update to the printer or an update to the network?
The update to the network. So the Dream Machines, even the access points, they all get software updates.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you manage those on the Dream Machine?
I almost feel like I want to turn it off, but I have it all automatic. So, I almost feel like I want to turn it off because I want to manage it. I haven't got bitten yet by the updates, so maybe if I do get bit one day where they break something, then I'll turn it off. But
then you'll be like, Eero, come back.
No.
Right?
I liked having the control though for that, because on Eero you have no control over the updates. You get it when you get it. You can't reverse it. You can't block it. They're just like, too bad. Here's your update. Take it. Everybody's got it. And that's one of the things I did not like about that.
Can you roll back on Unify?
Yes, I believe if I download, I can roll back manually. I haven't
Okay.
had to or haven't tried to, but I believe I can through the interface.
You feel like it's a pretty easy system to administrate? I mean, now you're a pretty advanced user, but compared to Eero, do you feel like it's harder or easier to administrate?
It's harder than Eero.
Okay.
Just because Eero doesn't have half the functions, half the features, half the settings.
Mhm.
They've really simplified. You can't beat Eero in terms of that. The other thing about this is their interface is all over the place on the Unify. They have two
Mhm.
interfaces. They have the old interface and the new interface. And when you look up, things, problem solving or whatever, you don't know if someone's referring to the old interface or the new interface, or you can't find that setting. You got to jump through them because they didn't put all the settings in both interfaces. It's pretty much a mess like that. So it's a little frustrating, but Eero is still top on that.
Do you think they're going to get better? I mean, I'm sure you're in their forums. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
at hometech.fm, you're talking about this. Do you think it's going to get better?
No, I don't have any hope because I've been seeing people complain about this for a very long time. So they're moving very slow. Well, like some of the support articles are people from like last year before, and they're complaining about the same things we're complaining now in terms of the interface. So as long as like I know where to find the things, I'm getting used to it now. But for when it first started, it was like old interface, new interface. Why is this different?
Yeah. Yeah. Two versions of the same thing.
Yes.
Oh, you mean like Windows 11? No, it can't be that. Can't be like that. Talk a little bit about, okay, so you ditched the PF Sense box because of its complexity. Did this just add another level of complexity in the advanced settings that you now are just doing it on the Unify box as opposed to doing it through PF Sense? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this added a little bit more complexity. I have to admit, PF Sense has some really powerful options that you can do when it comes to routing and stuff like that. That I really like got deep into. But the more I did stuff like that on the network, the more my network got complicated, the harder it was to troubleshoot problems. So that's why I kind of ditched doing all that and I kind of simplified my network to a point. But this does allow you to do a lot of powerful stuff if you need to, which is what I like because one day I may want to do something, but I don't want to be restricted by the hardware I have.
Joe had said it. He rolled back manually on Unify.
Yeah.
You just paste in the URL in the 4 June in the manual update field. So
yeah,
good. Alex is asking, how hard it was it to adjust AP power for Wi-Fi roaming, Eero, Nest, Wi-Fi, etc. You just plug it in and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's a good point because on the Unify, you could actually turn down the power on my access points, right? And they actually recommend doing that because you don't want them overlapping so much. You kind of want the signal to get weak enough that the device will jump over to the next one, right? Mm-hmm. But you can also get to the point where the Unify will kick you off to roam to another access point based on your RSSI number value. I can't remember the setting. It's called a threshold setting. But those are settings that, yes, they're nice to have, but you can also get yourself in trouble if you don't know what you're doing with them. Mm-hmm. So I kind of don't modify this, but I turn down the power so that's just enough. And I've had no problems with roaming. Like they have an iOS tool, right? And I always tell people about this. And with that tool, I can walk around my house and it will tell me, it vibrates every time it roams to another one. So you can kind of see where my phone's jumping around and when. And then it also uses the camera, what do they call it? Not the infrared, where it can map out your space. LiDAR.
Yeah.
It uses that and it will let you map out your whole house. And it draws on that the power from your Wi-Fi, and it tells you, like, you could walk into the corner of your house and it's mapping out your house and it'll tell you the strength of the signal right in that corner as you walk around your house. It's a really cool tool for figuring out a dead spot or a spot you might want to increase the power on or something like that.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a video game all in itself. Like,
it's kind of cool.
How long did you spend walking around mapping out your house?
I did it for as long as, I walked in a few rooms and then I stubbed my toe and I was so mad I just gave up. Like that's an actual true story. I hit my toe on the table. So I got through I think 2 rooms and I was so cool, but I was looking at the phone and not paying attention. And that just hurt so much. I gave up and I said, all right, I'm gonna do this when it's brighter out, and I just never got around to it again. But
Oh
it's
man.
a really cool tool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. Like now I want to buy Unify just for this tool. I'm weird that way. I want to map the
Yeah.
house, I want to figure out signal strength and what's when I went on to the T-Mobile 5G service, there's some tools you can do to look up. We talked about this on the show where's the route or where's the tower it's coming from. They'll even tell you what part of the house. They have a tool that'll say, okay, here's you on the map. It should go on this side of the house, right? Which is
Yes.
kind of cool. And so I messed with that thing, laid it down, set it up, turned it around, put it in the window, which they don't recommend. They're like, don't put your router in the window. Like that's a bad idea. It's a great spot for it because it's clear to go through, but there's a little heat problem, right, with that. So
Yeah.
no window. So I love those kinds of things. I'd have done that, and then next week I'd have done it again. I'd want to see, like, I want to get one of these vacuum cleaners that does that. So it maps your house, like, because I just want to watch it map the house, right? So, are you going to go back and do it again? Are you gonna maybe put some shoes on this time so you don't stub your toe?
The Unify system actually gives you a lot of tools for troubleshooting your network. So,
Mm.
like some of the other tools in the interface, it lets you see all the other networks around you and what they're doing, and they're jumping around in real time. And that actually led me to what I think was the cause of my devices dropping off before, right?
Mm.
So, when I started looking at that, I started seeing all the Eero networks in houses around me, right? And there were about
Mm.
3 other Eero networks around me, and they were all fighting on channels one, that band. And I think Eero hard codes it just to channel one. So they're all fighting around that. And I think that was
Oh
affecting me.
yeah,
And that was the
yeah.
interference that the support people were probably seeing,
Ah,
right? But I
yeah,
saw this with Unify. So on my
right.
Unify setup, I changed all the channels on that side of the house that was getting affected. And then I adjusted the channels around the house. So I got around it all.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We had some Mike and I bought some Wi-Fi cameras. I forget the name of them now. But I bought 2 of them, set them up. When I was setting up the Ring devices, I was getting really terrible signal off Ring, and I'm like, it's right there. Like the camera was literally on the other side of the wall. Well, what's the name of a camera, a company that would make D-Link? I think they were
Yes.
D-Link.
Yes,
The
they
little
were.
D-Link cameras. Well, for whatever reason, we were troubleshooting and I unplugged those, and all of a sudden, like the Ring stuff was like, "Oh, hello, I'm here." Like I'm here and I'm great, and this is the best I've ever seen. And I thought, no, certainly these Wi-Fi cameras wouldn't be causing the issue. Plug them back in. The Ring devices just went. And eventually we figured out, like I think you did too, those D-Link cameras were just causing all kinds of noise on the channel. And so I just took them out, which was sad because they were pretty cool. I mean, I liked messing around with them, and I could put them in spots that were convenient for me. But I was going to go with Ring. So do you think? Well, but Eero would not allow you to change those channels, right?
No.
So you would have never been able to even fix it anyways, even if you'd known.
Exactly. Like all they ever kept telling me was they see interference, they see interference.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't tell me exactly what it was, where it was, but I turned off every arrow except the main one and ran with that for a week, and it still was having problems. So that's one of the reasons why I gave up. And I still, even today, I see somebody's car has something broadcasting from it, just based on the name of it, and it's on
Oh,
channel 2, right? So being on channel 2, you interfere with the channels a little bit more. So I try and keep away from those lower channels, and now I don't have the problems.
yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me. I used, and it was like Wi-Fi Man or something. There's an app that I put on my Surface that I could go around and see all the channels. I think I wiped it out when I put a Windows 11 on, but maybe I can find it again because that kind of like lately too, I've been seeing all these Wi-Fi networks pop up in the neighborhood. I'm not saying I used to be the only one, but there didn't used to be as many as there are now, right? And that channel interference can be a big deal, you know?
Yeah, I think Joe is asking. It's called Wi-Fi Man on iOS. That's the app that I was mapping
The
it out.
okay.
If that's the one you're,
Wi-Fi Man, I think
yeah,
that's yeah.
it's a Unify app.
Is the Wi-Fi Man, right? You can see it'll show you that and give you a bunch of details on the networks that are around you, right?
The Wi-Fi Man will let you. It will show you your speeds. It will show you
Mhm.
your roaming and stuff like that. It will let you map out your space and the signal.
Oh, that's the Unify app. Okay.
Yeah, in the Unify app itself, that's where it will show you the networks, and you can troubleshoot that stuff and see all the networks jumping around pretty well like that. So you want to have both of them. They'll help you troubleshoot any Wi-Fi issues.
I'll have to look up. Maybe I can find that. But I was using that app for a while. You could put it was really really nice. Not that one, the different one that you could put. I put on my Surface, and then I could walk around, and in real time it would show me all the Wi-Fi networks and their
Yep.
signal strength and the channels they were on. And now that you're talking about this, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I'm getting some interference here too that would that I could maybe change channels or whatever. Joe says they noticed that the new Unify Network V7 has a radio optimization that you can schedule to scan and adjust channels automatically.
Yeah, so we talk about that. Actually, in the Home Tech Hub, we have a bunch of guys, a lot of pros in there that we talk to, and they're much more advanced on Unify than I am. Like they'll go through things with me, and I'm just lost. But one of the things they say is don't use that. Don't let it auto find it because it causes more problems. Find the channels that you want and work well for you, and just let it be. I chose channel 11. I always tried to avoid channel 11 because I didn't want it affecting my Zigbee. They're kind of overlap in a way, but I moved my Zigbee channels out, and channel 11 has been great on one side of my house. On the other side of the house, I have channel 6, and then I let all those other Eero networks fight on channel 1.
Okay, good way to do it. Works for you, right?
And that's the whole thing. I'm not a pro. I'm average, a little more average. Find what works for you, because some things will work for me, but they don't work for you. But then you find what works for you, and everyone's happy.
Yeah. I did find that app. It's called WinFi. I'm
Yes.
not even sure it works, just to be honest. It's on my Surface, and that's running Windows 11. We'll see if it actually boots up. But that was the one I'd carry around and kind of start looking at. And I have a pretty small house, so I have the Bitdefender box, and it works just fine for me and what we do. Everything reaches it, but so I have a fairly easy setup for that. But and then I try to hardwire everything I can. That's just one of those kind of like it doesn't have to be on Wi-Fi. I don't run it. It's loading. We'll see if this thing we'll see if this thing can actually if this will actually work. WinFi, WINFI.
And
Is
another
on.
one I was playing with was called Insider. So it's like INSSIDER.
Hmm.
But these things, they'll give you a whole lot of information. You have to know how to interpret that information
Mhm.
to figure out what
Mhm.
it is that's causing you problems.
Yeah. This one is just loading. I maybe have to do some. I thought maybe they desupported it at some point. Anyways, so I'm wh- at at what point when you were looking at the neighbor's network and you saw this, did you was it like a relief, like, oh, now I know why? Well, you suspect, right? You don't know if you know for sure, but you suspect maybe interference was what was causing the original problem, right?
Yeah, and when I first put in the Unify, all my Unify was on channel 1 and everything like that. And yeah, I was seeing interference and stuff, and that's what I started using their tools to troubleshoot it. And that's when I saw all this and started moving my channels around and everything. So I suspect when it was all the Eero networks in my area all fighting on that same way, because Eero introduced some I can't remember what they called it, but they basically introduced extra features in one of their updates that, they auto adjusted the bands they used and, did all this funky network stuff. And I have a feeling they're all just fighting. They all got the update and they're all just fighting in that space to beat each other up. And I was just in the
That
crosshairs,
makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if they're all auto adjusting and then, it becomes kind of a race, a race to figure out who's going to own the channel.
Yeah. And you have no control over that with Eero.
Yeah. I'm just kind of wondering if that, should be a future consideration kind of built in to some of the management of our Wi-Fi devices now, because it's only going to get worse. Like all the networks, all the channels, all those kinds of things. It didn't used to be bad because they were simple, but now we're expanding them. We're creating mesh networks. We're putting them out on the back patio. We're sending them over to the neighbor's garage, right?
Oh,
So,
even to add to that, like we talked about this on Home Tech once. One utility company was putting in smart meters in people's houses, smart water meters and stuff like that, and people didn't realize that they were broadcasting signals from that smart meter, and those signals were doing things like killing their Zigbee networks or interfering with their Wi-Fi networks, and they had no control over it too. So we need to look at it.
Yeah, well, it's going to be. We're only going to do more.
Yep.
It's only gonna happen more. Gets me thinking. I wonder if it'd be good for me to know what network. I've got Ring cameras all around. What are they on? I've got a Ring Chime, which acts as a Wi-Fi hub for some of them. One of them, it's just easier to put it on the Wi-Fi network as opposed to using the Chime. I'm gonna put a fourth one in the garage here shortly. So that I can look and see if the garage door is shut. That's kind of could just buy a Wi-Fi device for the garage door, but I have 3 cameras and I need a fourth to fill out the block. So don't tell my wife that. Now you got me thinking this weekend I need to do some checking of channels and signals and some of those kinds of things to see what my neighbors are doing, and then just cut the power to their house if it's Oop, I'm sorry that tree fell on your power line. Oh bummer. Oh bummer. Any thoughts of, certainly the Eero device that you had was probably a version or 2 back. Any thought of, don't they have any newer equipment or newer version that you could upgrade it to?
Yeah, my Eero devices were mixed, because that's a good thing about Eero is you can mix the generation. So I had everything from Gen 1 up to, I think it was Eero 6 at that time. So like I even just unplugged everything but the latest one. I unplugged all of them, put all the Gen 1s in, was part of troubleshooting. So the new Eero announced this week actually a new version, the 6E. With it comes with the usual, it's faster, better, more range, etc., but it's got some other cool features. It has 2.5 gigahertz, not gigahertz, gigabit inputs. So some of our ISPs up here are now getting faster at 2.5. So now this, I know, I don't have it. I'm still at 1 gigabit.
Stop teasing us.
I know I'm still at 1 gigabit, so I'm not getting the 2 gigabit yet, but this will help with that. But they also built in a Zigbee hub into it, so you can bring all your Zigbee devices into the A-Lady ecosystem through your Eero devices. So that's prepping everybody for Matter and Thread and stuff like that. That's coming down in the fall. It looks good, it looks fast, it supports more devices, and that's something you have to consider going forward. Is as we add more devices, you want to be able to support all these. They're almost like secret devices too, because you don't realize your TV jumps on, or you forget that you put your TV on to stream on it and stuff like that, right? It's amazing how many devices end up on your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, right on. You're talking about speed this week. Bob, who's out in chat right now, posted in the Discord group his speeds, and I think he has 2.5 up and down. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I think he was taunting us. That's what. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for doing that, Bob. By the way, but I was thinking, geez, I felt good, when I had gigabit, and it was not even 1. It was 0.9. and I was still only getting 35 down or 35 up. So it was like, this is going to work for me. It's weird. I went from 35 up to 75 up, which is kind of nice when I change over to the T-Mobile, and it does make a difference, having twice the speed for the uploads, the video files that I do for the podcasts and stuff. It's nice. I'd love it to be symmetrical, just like Bob is seeing there.
I feel the hate.
No, it's okay. He just had to tease us with that picture. If you want to join us in the Discord, if you want to see it, jump in the Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Any tips? So as we think about, you did all this, how long? What was the duration, do you think, of from the time you decided you were going to replace this to it being done? And then any tips for us?
Oh, well, from the time I was going to replace everything to it being done, probably about 3 weeks, I would say, because it took me a while to get the parts, right? Like ordering from Unify, sometimes it's hard to get these access points. They're having, especially with the chip shortage, a lot of things are back order. Finding the switch was the hardest part for me. I had to actually source that out of Ottawa. A place in Ottawa had a few of them, and I was able to get them from there. So, plan out your network, make sure you get everything. I went all in on Unify so I can have one ecosystem I have to deal with, because some of these other switches that you don't want to have to understand them as well. It's nice to know just one ecosystem, and then when troubleshooting, it's easier than having, because my Netgear switch was also a smart switch, so it was like I didn't want to have to deal with both of them, right? And offload hardwire as much as you can. Anything that any of the heavy lifters, the TVs, the cameras, if you can run a wire, spend the time, run the wire, and offload it, and your Wi-Fi will like you that much better.
And you had in your notes here, hardwire all the access points as well. Don't use mesh if you don't have to. What mesh is there? Why wouldn't I want to use that?
You can use it, but if you can hardwire your access points, you'll get some better speeds out of it, right? Like your signal will go to access point and go straight to your switch and go straight to whatever, right? Otherwise, if you're using mesh, it goes from the device to the access point to the other access point, down to the the main hub, or it depends on how you'll have it wired, right? But I hardwire all my access points if I can, just to avoid using that mesh, clear up the space, less frequencies being transmitted, you get some better speeds. It's well worth it. And that's another tip I get in the pro space. They're like, you know what, hardwire access points, just don't even bother, and turn off the meshing on them, right? It's just a feature that can cause problems. Just turn it off. We've seen it, and you'll be happier.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's less complex, and the access points have to do less work, which is always good. Yeah, which is always good. So, well, do you feel like you're done at this point from a setup, or is this? Are there still tweaks to do?
No, I'm done. Like, this has been running for a few months now, and my printer's still working every day. It's been a habit now where I actually check to see if it's still showing up, and it's working. So, you know what? In terms of my network, it's been working great ever since I put the system in. I've had no issues, and like I said, the wife's usually the first one to complain, when things don't work, and I haven't heard from her complaining in a while about that specific thing. So,
I mean, she complains about you all the time.
It's like, as long as she's not complaining about the Wi-Fi, I'll take it. So it's been great, but like it wasn't cheap. That's all I have to say. I threw some money to solve the problem, and it's solved. Yeah. But I'm looking at a lot of these new mesh systems, and they're coming out expensive now. Like the new Eero setup, the Pro, the 3-pack is like, I think in the US it was $799. For it. So, in Canada, we're over $1,000 for Wi-Fi.
It's getting ridiculous. It's really, it's the we're back to that in that really expensive phase again. We've been through this before with tech, right? Yeah, it gets really, really expensive, and then hopefully it cycles back down and gets more reasonable again. But it is just, it's kind of dumb. It's bringing me down, Gavin. It's bringing me down. Alex says if you have an SDR, which is a software-defined radio dongle, you can pick up radio waves and show all those types of devices, such as smart electric meters, weather stations, etc.
Yeah, I've heard people that did that, and I wanted to look into that and see that actually because I want to see what else, any secret signals in my house, right? Like
Yeah.
when doing the Wi-Fi scanning, I didn't realize someone's car was broadcasting a signal,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And you
yeah.
could tell, like it said I'm still trying to find the car, right? Because I want to go and tell them, hey, can you change the channel on that somehow to not interfere?
Yeah. Alex, is that a brand you can buy? Is there a brand you buy of this? And what does this thing look like? I'm kind of intrigued. This is like, when you could buy that, I forget what they call it. Wieger had one where you plug it into your car and it tells you all the
The
problems or
ODB2 reader.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I
Something
have one
like
of those.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you? He gave me his and I never plugged it in. I was like,
Ah, cool little
I don't
toy.
know. I don't know. I think I even bought the you have to buy an app, I think, or something like to make it work.
The
So
one I got is free, and you know what? It's a peace of mind because when your engine light comes in, you plug it on, it tells you exactly what the cause is. So when you're
mhm.
going to the dealership, you're like, I know it's this that's
Yeah.
causing the issue, and it's peace of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Well, Alex, that sounds kind of interesting. I'm going to try and get the software running on my Surface over the weekend and see if I can test some radios. I get into this and then I start looking at it and I'm like, man, this stuff is complicated. And then
Yeah,
I give up, you know.
I think Wi-Fi is becoming more important now than it ever has been before. Like
Mhm.
good working Wi-Fi. We're much more reliant on it now,
Yeah.
and with all
Oh,
these
for sure.
IoT devices coming in, they're going to be jumping on the Wi-Fi and utilizing that. We have to make sure. I hate IoT Wi-Fi devices. Right. Like just to be clear, one of the main reasons if I ever change my password, I can't imagine having to go to all of
Oh,
them.
yeah, it's a weekend.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
that's something I can't even imagine changing my password now because of all the things I'd have to go through,
Oh,
right? Like, I
yeah.
wish they would
Yeah.
solve that problem, if anything.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I cringe, when I was changing out the going from the Cox service to the T-Mobile service, I was afraid I was gonna have to reset that,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I mean, it kinda slowed me down for a minute until I plugged it all in and it just worked, and then I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty cool." Um, I know sometimes even if you have the same SSID and password across devices, sometimes it doesn't recognize it. In your case, it sounds like you put in the same SSID and password and it was fine, right?
Yeah, I have an inventory of all my devices, so I knew when the new one came on, everything showed up. I was like, "Excellent." And one of the
Yeah.
things that's nice with the Unify is you could set up a dedicated 2.4 SSID if you wanted, or like in Euro, you just see one SSID, and it handles both of them. Well, some devices don't like that, but in Unify, that's another powerful thing. You can split it up if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have that ability too. I just left them together. Here,
Yeah,
it didn't matter. I'd split them apart, and then there was another network. Kids would be coming in, Dad, what network do I attach to? Finally, I think I just created one guest network, and it was like, just connect to the guest. You'll
yes.
be fine. Give them the password, and you'll be fine. Anything else, Gavin, from a anything I didn't ask or didn't cover or thoughts as far as lessons learned around that? Would you do it exactly the same way again if you had to do it today?
If I had to do it today, I'd probably do it the same way, and the reason why is because 'cause I'm having no issues with it right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it works, and I got everything I want out of it. My advice also to people is, like, understand what's on your network, like, know everything and how it interacts because you'd be surprised at something like even Sonos, right? If you're a bit in the Sonos ecosystem, Sonos has a Sonos Net, right? Where it connects like its own Wi-Fi network in a way. They connect to each other. You hardwire just one of them, and it goes from there. Well, you got to understand what channel that's running on because I actually had to change my Sonos net, and then my Sonos started working properly,
Mm.
right? So understand all the devices that you. It's a lot of work, I know, but this is the time we're in when we start playing with these more advanced tools.
Mhm.
It's when things start breaking, you need to know why.
Mhm. Yeah. No, right on. You got me thinking now, like, because I had one time, I had also mapped all the devices in the house by IP. I even captured their MAC address. put what they were, where they were located, at this really nice spreadsheet. And then I think I had to change devices, and that all got reassigned. And the thought of going back into my router and manually assigning all those again, I was like, I'm not going to do it. So I don't actually know now. The Bitdefender gives me a really, really good readout of all the devices that are attached, and are they secure, and do they have any vulnerabilities. It scans them for vulnerabilities, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's like, to your point, if I had to change them all again, there's some things that you're like, well, I'll just wait for it not to work, and then I'll find it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
well, and it's one of those kinds of things, like the meter, right? The meat thermometer that I have. Like, you set that up once and you kind of forget about it. You change your SSID or whatever. It's Thanksgiving, you go to grab that thing and you forget that 6 months ago, because you haven't
Yep.
used it in 6 months, right? And it's always a frustrating. You're like, oh, okay, where's the app?
Yeah.
How do I find? I've got to I got to redo it, and you're like, your wife is looking at you like, you moron, just put the turkey on the grill.
It's true.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true. We
Yeah.
overcomplicate sometimes.
Totally do.
But we love it. We do, and we do it again. We do it again.
Yeah. Well, we do it again. we keep doing it. Do you have any you got any big projects ahead that you're looking forward to, maybe this spring or summer, that you're kind of thinking you're going to redo, or any projects like that?
Redoing, no, this was probably the last major one. Like, I redid my whole cameras. We talked about that in the Blue Iris episode. And I did my Wi-Fi, and that was the major things. Now I'm kind of been in the phase of adding features and improving certain experiences, and like, one of the things I did this week is I created a tiler for my TV watching. So in the pro space, they were talking about these things called video tilers, and it takes multiple inputs and then gives you like a tiled, you can watch like 4 channels at once, for example, right? And they were talking about it in the boxes, the equipment's $10,000, $15,000. And I was like, whoa. Let me see if I could do this with my setup. So I actually created something this week. We talked about it on the show, where it tiles multiple channels. I can watch multiple things at once through my interface, all controlled from the remote control and the guide and everything like that. It's a really cool project I put together. And it was just in time for March Madness. So I was watching multiple games at once, flipping the audio between. Oh, it was awesome on the big TV. So those kind of projects like that made TV viewing better. And I've been working on increasing things like that, making experiences better, and just adding features with a lot of the stuff I've implemented.
That's cool. Now, wait, you said March Madness. What, do you guys have a March Madness where it's hockey and not
basketball?
You're not watching American basketball. That's not violent enough.
Oh no! What do you mean? No, we watch it. We used to have a pool in the office for it every year and stuff like that.
They don't let them fight.
I know.
There's no body checking. I mean,
one of the coaches, he threw a punch the other day that was exciting. One of the was it Michigan's coach?
You get thrown out for those kinds of things.
Yeah, but I like the college March Madness because those kids play their heart out, and it's more exciting than the NBA, because the NBA guys are like, I'm already making $40 million. It's nice to have a title, but those kids are playing for like their future.
Yeah.
Go Gonzaga. I'm rooting for them,
Yeah. Listen, if in the United States, if the college football, whatever they are, could get their act together and do a playoff system, because I get with college football, I get, after Thanksgiving, I don't really care. After the championship weekend, and then they do this weird bowl thing, and I don't watch any of them. But man, I tell you what, last weekend, St. Patrick's Day, and I mean, we were watching one of them, not watching it, Wieger was, but we were following the Creighton game during the show, like
last week.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just a cool thing. So I wish we would get college football on that system as opposed to. I mean, it works for the NFL. Why can't they do it for college football? Is there a big hockey? Is there a college hockey? How's that work in Canada? I mean, I know you guys are nuts about hockey. Besides the pro stuff, what's the next level down?
Is it OHL, or I'm not sure the rankings of hockey in Canada.
You're not really a Canadian.
I know.
I am.
I drink Tim
stripping you.
Hortons. I drink Tim Hortons every day, but I mean, yeah, I don't
stripping
really.
you of your Canadianness.
I'm more of a basketball fan, and you know the Raptors are Canada's team, right? Toronto Raptors.
Whatever. It's almost like an enclave of the United States goes in and comes around for that. It's you're not Canadian. You're just an American that lives in Canada.
Yeah,
I'm disappointed with you, Gavin.
I hear it from my neighbors too, and they start talking hockey, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't see the game.
I have, for whatever reason, I've gotten reintroduced to Letterkenny over the last couple weeks, right? And I've just been watching all the shorts on YouTube. Not the whole episodes, but just the shorts, and it's just hilarious. And so it's a great reminder, and I know it's exaggerated, but it's just a great reminder of how great Canada is. And so thanks for representing the United States strongly, though, with basketball, Gavin.
Hey, basketball was invented in Canada, so
that's true. Well, was it?
Yeah,
I thought it was I thought it was Kansas.
No, it was What's his Naismith? No,
was he?
It's a Canadian inventor. Yeah, it was invented.
Okay. All right. Well, we have to fight on that one, but it's okay. I'll pull your shirt up and then just kind of beat on you.
Yeah, you're not allowed to fight. I only learned this other day, but it's like an unwritten rule in hockey that if the guy doesn't drop his gloves, he can't punch him. Like that's the kind of like, let's go, drop the gloves. All right. And I was like, I didn't even know. In that moment in time, I'm not thinking about his gloves. I was just gonna hit him, right? Like, yeah, you guys actually have rules to war.
There's a whole etiquette. Yeah. There's a whole etiquette around hockey fighting, and what you got to do, and every team's got that bruiser who's that this can't play hockey, but man, he's big and strong. He can knock people down. It's a lot. It's its own great culture. One of the I love Olympic hockey because it's not as violent. The NHL is just, it's a little over the top at times. Yeah. And I know, I'm sure in the Canadian leagues it gets pretty rough, right? And they don't allow any of that in the Olympics, and it just makes for, even though I joke about it, it just makes for a little bit better sport, not having people fighting, out there. But people love it. It's they go to a hockey game and a fight breaks out, right? So
it's part of the sport.
Yeah, it's totally part of it. Everybody loves to see that. So Gavin, if folks wanted to contact you, what's the best way to do that?
On Twitter, I'm GVN Campbell. Just think Gavin Campbell, but I took out the A and the I. Or Gavin@hometech.fm is an email you can reach me at. I'm also in the Discord chat. I'm watching there if you mentioned me. So you can get a hold of me there.
Can do that as well. And then make sure you subscribe to HomeTech.fm and listen to these guys. It's some really good stuff. We're just goofing around here. They're actually serious over there.
We goof around over there too. Don't worry.
You goof around a little bit. You goof around. You're a little more serious than us over here, though. We're just blah blah blah. Well, Kevin, thanks for coming on. Before we wrap it, I'm going to try a new format at the end of April. April 28th is a Thursday night. I want to do a tech news roundtable. And what I kind of want to do is have listeners submit tech stories and be willing to come talk about them. And we'll just do kind of a news segment. I just want to try it once, see if it works. And so if you're listening to this, whether you're listening live or you're listening on the podcast, and hopefully it's before the 28th of April, 2022, and you want to be on Home Gadget Geeks like Gavin has been on here tonight, and you want to talk about some tech news stories, I won't be able to take everybody. I may not even get an email from anyone, but I'd love you guys, if you have a tech story you want to talk about, you can submit those as we get a little bit closer to it, although by the time this comes out and some things goes on, you might want to submit them. But I'd love to get together and talk about just tech news in a roundtable format for an hour and a half or so. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. If you're interested in trying that, you got to have a story. I'll pick a few of those and have a few on. We'll give it a try. If it works, we'll do it again, but I'm just going to try it once. Again, that's April 28th, 2022, kind of a tech news roundtable. I want to give that format a try here, just kind of trying to, Gavin, I'm experimenting with some new things.
Nothing wrong with that.
I feel like it's time to try a few things different. Jim at the Average Guy .tv. Don't forget, we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central. And before I go into this, Gavin, again, thank you for coming out. Appreciate you spending time with me tonight and going through this. I appreciate it.
Oh no, I really appreciate you having me on. And don't tell Mike, but I missed him, tonight.
I know.
Don't let him know.
I know.
Don't let him know.
No, we definitely don't want to let him know. So,
exactly.
but
I'll never hear the end of it.
We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Don't forget, theaverageguy.tv is powered by Maple Grove Partners. We had Christian on before, and actually I have a Cyber Frontiers sitting in the queue that I was supposed to edit this week that I just never got to. We'll get that out here eventually. But get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting, and it's fast from people that you know and you trust. And, of course, that's Christian. And so plans start as little as $10 a month. He's going to be an inflation fighter and not raise his prices. So $10 a month gets you kind of some pretty great hosting. Check them out, maplegrovepartners.com. Send me an email for the Tech News Roundtable. And we are back next week. Again, Cody, I got to learn his name before we do this. Sodine is joining us next week. Kind of a different show where we're talking about a Kickstarter project that takes water out of the atmosphere and makes it drinkable, and up to 10 liters like that a day. Sounds kind of interesting. We're going to check it out next week. Join us live. Love to have a big crowd if you guys want to come out and join us live. Don't forget, theaverageguy.tv/YouTube, Saturday, noon Central. I want to thank you for joining us. We'll do a little bit of a post show for those that are staying around live. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Gavin, thanks again. That was fun. You got me thinking a little bit about, it really got me kind of thinking like, I need to check my neighbors and their channels, right? What channels they're on.
Yeah. I gave my old Wi-Fi setup to my mom, actually. In her neighborhood, she's surrounded by older people. They don't have complicated networks, and it works beautifully in her house. Her house is actually bigger than mine. And I just gave her 3 of my old pucks. Works beautifully for her. And then I sold 2 online and kind of got back some money for it. So,
yeah,
it's worth checking out because people are throwing these in and they don't care like who's next door. And it's, you don't ever think about it. You're just worried about your house.
Yeah, it kind of makes me no. Yeah. And when you think they're not going to reach that far. But the newer ones,
they do,
right? You know, although I get really crappy coverage out in the shed, I was kind of hoping that my box would get all the way, my Bitdefender box would get to the shed. And it does, just doesn't do it well.
Yeah. My neighbors, they used to have just the ISP's router, but on one side of the house, it was always a problem. So they actually would jump onto my guest network in my house from their house and use my network. And I got the notifications all the time. So I knew when they were, I'm like, oh, you guys are home, or you guys using my network. And I was fine with that. I was like, go ahead, use it, no problem. It's just when they started complaining about the speed, I said, hey, you're getting some free Wi-Fi here. Don't complain about the speed. I don't care about your PlayStation. You got to put in your own network.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Kids started pushing it a little bit at that point, but you do extend it to other people's houses. Like, we're so close to each other up here.
Yeah. Well, we are too here in Bellevue.
Yeah,
it's pretty close. Like, I can see all my neighbors, Wi-Fi stuff. I don't know. I don't think I get the ability to change. Oh, channel. Yeah. I got to connect to it. Okay.
What Wi-Fi do you have?
The Bitdefender box does all the it's its own box, right? It's its own, and it's got security built into it and all those other things. In the app, there's the ability to change channels. I'm sure once I get this Wi-Fi thing working, I'll see that kind of for sure. But you gave me this idea, like, what if you set up a mesh network for the neighborhood?
I was almost going to do that. but then it would put their kids on my network, and kids are the worst
Yeah.
things to put on the network. So I said,
No, that's
nah,
true.
you know what, have your own network. No, no. Because if you think about it, like, not even just that, like, I could have run a cable from my switch across the house to my neighbor's house and then set up their own switch over there. And, we could go that far, and then we'd split the internet costs, like, there's so much you could have done. I know in some areas, in some countries, they do that. It's kind of funny
Yeah.
when you see they run their own, like, not ISP, their own cable company,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
outside of everything else illegally, and they do it like that. They just run cable from one person's house to another, to another, to another.
Alex says to your comment, he says, it's like free beer. You can't complain about the brand, just the temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I wasn't thinking about like cheating on cheating on internet connectivity and buying one for the whole neighborhood. It was
Oh,
more like, what if you took everybody's internet connection, put them together so that they would be like you'd have like a massive, like I'm always saying, I want better up speed, right? And so what if my neighbor and I combined our internet connection, and so that we could double it basically. We're never probably doing the same things at the same time. We got plenty of down at that point because, the down is always, so it's not like when we're watching movies, again, we're not sharing the internet. We're just, what do they call that that's called something when you put that together, you take two connections and make them one.
they're bonding.
Yeah,
Is it
something like
bonding?
that. Something like
Bonding. I know there's load balancing where you have two connections and it just load balances the traffic. I think bonding puts it together.
Yeah, Joe says if it's free, it's me. Yeah. Because Mike, when I had both Cox and T-Mobile, Mike was like, "Well, you should, go
Yeah.
run them into a PF Sense box and put them together, right?" Um, but that could be interesting then, where if you could do that, I don't know how you would, but if you could do that and take advantage of everybody's speed, I mean, you could get some blazing fast speeds that
I'm pretty sure that's against the terms of service too.
no, of course it is. Of course it is. But
like they would wonder what's these cables going between these houses,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're
I don't
thinking,
know.
but you would need some centralized network
I
and
know.
stuff like that.
Jim at the average guy.tv, if you know how to do this. So I want to know how to do this. Send me an email, Jim at the average guy.tv. No, I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to run cables. I wouldn't even run a cable out to the shed. I was like, no, I've got a power outlet on the deck. I literally, if I need power in the shed, I just run an extension cord, plug it in. I put an outside plug like you would for an RV on the shed, so I could just plug it. Super easy, just plug it in. It's in a waterproof box. It's sweet. And then, so as I need power out there, I can either run it from the deck or from the generator, either way. And then, I just use the phone. I for a while I thought, ooh, maybe I'll I could run some cable out there. And you're like, you know what? My phone gets 300 down. I think,
Yes.
I get 300 down and 70 up on my phone. Why not just, it takes me, swipe up, turn on the Wi-Fi or turn on the, what do they call it? Network sharing. No, what do they call it on iPhone?
Oh yeah.
What do they call that? Jeez, Louise. A personal hotspot.
Yep.
Turn on the hotspot. It works.
Yeah.
No cables, no wires, no runs, no hits, no errors. So
phone speeds are amazing now, like, without Wi-Fi, but you just go through your data cap much faster.
Yeah. Do you have a data cap on your phone?
Yeah, I think I'm at 20 gig is my data cap per month.
Wow, something that's
So
better in the US than in Canada.
well, it's unlimited, but after 20 gig, I think they then throttle your speed.
Throttle it down a little bit.
So they call it unlimited,
Yeah.
but then it's like, yeah, you have 20 gig, but after that, you got slow speed till the next cycle.
I think that's I think that's the limit on our hotspot. I think I have more bandwidth on the phone for if I'm using it as a phone. As soon as I turn the hotspot on, then they start metering it and they'll throttle it down. Although I've never had that happen to me. I just don't use enough. I guess I could go in there and check and see how much I'm using. I don't really care. It's great being on T-Mobile now because I don't care anymore how much I download. Like, you're just not thinking about it. It's so great. And here's another great thing about that. It's $50. Not $50 plus $10 in taxes. And it's just $50.
Yeah, that's pretty
Like,
sweet.
it's crazy. The bill I get, it looks like it was written by a sixth grader. Like, it says you owe $50. That's it. Like, there's no
There's no complication to it.
there's no like 8 pages, and
I
there's
think I pay $130 for our internet, and that's a
Mhm.
gig down, 30 up.
Yeah, and
So
that'd be comparable to what we'd pay here.
yeah, yeah.
Little bit more, to take into account it's in Canadian dollars, but I was paying 105, 110. You can get it a little bit cheaper if you kind of work them down a little bit, but yeah, it's $50 exactly every month, $50.
That's a
And I'm
nice
like,
bill.
it
Is it
is nice.
reliable?
Yeah.
Is it reliable?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't lost. I used to have trouble with Cox. I used to have trouble streaming like this, and I don't even think about it anymore. It works so great for that. I've done, I'll do 8 podcasts. I did 7 last week. I did 8 this week,
Yeah.
and no issues on that. At least no one's telling me that I'm having any issues.
And I'd
So,
almost I take slower service for more reliable service any day, right?
sure.
I'm currently with Rogers, and I've had them for 6 years, and I don't know if it's the neighborhood, but it's been solid, and I seem to get all the bandwidth. And I think it's because I'm on my own trunk or something, or whoever's on my
Oh,
trunk
nice.
outside.
Yeah.
It's an older neighborhood, so they're not pushing a lot of stuff. So when I'm downloading, I can get the full gigabit coming through.
Nice.
Right. So it's really nice to
Oh,
when
that
I
would be
have
great.
I don't want to touch it. I just want to,
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at
You're like, nobody, you're
yeah.
telling your neighbors, no, you don't want the internet. No, it's terrible here. You don't want the internet. Don't get the internet service. It's terrible. Just use your phone. It'll be fine. Just use your phone.
I actually manage my neighbor's Wi-Fi, and it's funny because when we'll be in the garage, and he'll be like, "Oh, the kids aren't coming down," and blah blah blah, and I'll be like, "Hold on 1 second." And I turn off the Wi-Fi, and it just takes a couple minutes, and they come into
Yeah.
the garage and they're like, "Is your Wi-Fi down?" I go, "Okay, your dad needs to talk to you now."
That's great.
It's
That's great.
amazing what they
It
do.
is great. It is. Yeah, I could shut it off. I've got some tools to be able to shut that off for everybody. I don't, or by device. You can go in there and just pick the device and
Yeah.
save a lot. It's more from a security perspective. If one of your devices get compromised, you can shut it off pretty quick or whatever. But
Yeah.
So if you're listening live, thanks for coming out. We want to see you guys next week. So don't forget about next week. I've got a guest not that Gavin's not a guest, but I got a guest I'd like to impress. And so coming out. We want to see you guys next week, same time. Thanks for coming out tonight. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.